have not forgotten about the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers Save the Hollow Earth. Don't worry about that. The reason is that the AI technology has progressed so far that you can now make whole episodes if you're patient enough. And what I'm trying to do is put together the right amount of engines, the right combination rather, in order to put together a kind of okay Power Ranger episode. And so that's what I'm working on, and it's, it has its moments, as you can see here. You have my version of Trini and Billy discovering Animus in his stasis mode. As you know, when he was defeated by Master Org, he disappeared because he was super duper sad about that. And this is where he ended up in my story, is in the Hollow Earth, hiding, of course, after the defeat. He's found in his power down mode here by Billy and Trini, who don't reactivate him, by the way. They don't know who he is or what he does. There's just thousands of dead Zords around him. That's all they know. So, that being said, we'll move on over here, though, because I wanted to bring your guys' attention to just what I'm talking about. When I say that we're pretty close to being able to put an episode together, I'm not kidding you.
When will you learn, Green? I'm not your enemy. I'm not the one judging you.
And then for whatever reason, the Green Ranger is just shaking. Maybe he's got the shivers. I don't know. Some steam got up in his armor. I don't know. But anyway, we're very close.
When will you learn, Green? I'm not your enemy. I'm not the one judging you.
We're very close to being able to put together a kind of okay Power Ranger episode. As you saw in the opening, you can get pretty creative with how you represent these characters now, especially if you're smart with how you're using this stuff, rather than trying to be overly ambitious with it and ask it to do things that the AI is just flatly not capable of at the moment. Combat scenes are still hit or miss, of course, and occasionally you can get some pretty solid voice lines, but the AI actors are, of course, lifeless. It's kind of the point, they're AI. So again, I'll play this clip again.
When will you learn, Green? I'm not your enemy. I'm not the one judging you.
And so that's what I'm working on, is I'm trying to put together an episode of scenes that are, they feel like they're from a Power Rangers television show, even though they're not. That kind of thing. It's not so much out here to get sued, but moreover to tell a story that I know Hasbro, Disney, and Boom Studios just flatly aren't going to involve themselves with. As you know, or may not know, the Power Rangers adaptation of Gokaiger did not fare well when it came to the internal decision-making of Hasbro, Neo Saban at the time as well. Neo Saban was the one who had the control of it, because the Power Rangers have different rules than Super Sentai. If you're not familiar, in the Power Rangers rule book, the series guide, the Bible, you're not allowed to present the Rangers as criminals. This is what happened to Lupin Ranger versus Pato Ranger coming over here to be adapted into anything. I came up with calling it Victory Police versus Super Police, but it's one of those things where they're just not confident in the idea of, people outside the law doing things, even though it's kind of the core of Power Rangers to begin with. As such, Gokaiger fell into that because pirates are, pirates. They're not good, on the side of law and order. And so again, the Power Rangers branding tripped all over itself, trying to make sense of Power Rangers and a big old Jolly Roger right on their chests and forehead and over everything that they touch. And that was just a bridge too far for old Neo Saban. And so what they decided to do was cram that into some not anniversary season. They tried very hard not to turn it into one, even though it was one. It was very difficult to negotiate the Gokaiger theme, of course, with pirates, and then avoid that at all costs. Just refuse to acknowledge that in any way, shape, or form. Gosei, their mentor character, the tiki face that was mounted to the wall in Megaforce, even he couldn't explain it. He said, "There's a good reason for that," and then the scene cuts away, and that's it. The thing is that as far as the censors go here in the United States, there wasn't going to be a problem with the pirate thing. It's just the Power Rangers' own internal reasoning, the branding reasons, made it impossible to bring this over because of, how they themselves choose to treat this franchise. And so that's why I feel confident in going around and doing Starstrikers, because I know Hasbro cannot touch this at all. Not only that, they sold off the suits associated with it, so they are absolutely in no way going to go back in time and review anything from a previous series. And now Hasbro's trying to completely reboot from the ground up using Disney as their catalyst. So that's modern Disney, not the old kind that did kind of badass stuff every now and then. RPM was pretty badass. You know, you got to admit, there aren't too many Power Rangers series that start off with the extinction of humanity. Okay, there aren't too many of them start off with the Terminator. The only thing it lacked was having Venjix stomp on a human skull out in the desert. You know, it was the only thing it was lacking. But that's what you're facing, is that you're facing a brand in America that has committed itself entirely to 5 to 8 year olds. And there aren't a lot of those left in the world at all, let alone here in the United States. And of those kids, most of them are marinated in Fortnite already, believe it or not. So those 5 to 8 year olds are just not checking in on old Power Rangers. And I'm not sure Disney, the new Disney, is going to be able to defeat that. As you can see, the whole team is present right here. What I'm most fond of is, of course, Nebula's End, Refreshments and Rift. I decided we were going to have like an asteroid-based bar, kind of like Blue Heaven from Outlaw Star, where like everybody's there. If you remember in Power Rangers SPD, Piggy had a like a alleyway bar truck. You know, he would sell things out of it and whatnot, food, drink, all that stuff, until it got blown up. But you'd see like past Ranger henchmen, you know, the villain henchmen hanging around the place. You know, they were either homeless or out of work or whatever. And over time, of course, you'd see this in Power Rangers in Space before SPD, of course. You'd see this in Power Rangers in Space, where some of the old monsters, the old villains from previous shows, were they were present at the saloon on Onyx, where Villamax came from. They were present at the League of Evil, Legion of Evil. It's wherever everybody was having their big dinner when Andros showed up and messed up their table. But this is the idea, is that there's this sort of big world of Power Rangers out there. And there's a lot to talk about inside of this that just seems like every new series is ignoring. Now, as we know, that's because of the Super Sentai footage, right? But also, Power Rangers has done its damnedest over the years to try and create like one through thread of story throughout all of this. And what's important about this is that series like the Power Rangers Starstrikers would be using a lot of that universe to its advantage, given how, as in Gokaiger, the Rangers are changing into various previous teams, and teams that, of course, are forward from Gokaiger, obviously, because of how time works. And the big situation that this story is meant to wrap itself around is that the Rangers ended up losing a war. That's the key to why we have the Starstrikers, is that they're from a far-flung future where the Empyrean Dominion controls everything. And they have been thrust back in time from a rip in time. Now, it's not known if Zordon created that, the Morphin Grid created that, but it is a rift in time that brings these characters back to just after when the Dominion War was lost. Okay, now I know that that's from Star Trek or whatever, but it's just a convenient name. So it's not trademarked. But the Rangers end up, the Rangers of our time have lost this war. And so they've surrendered their powers, and that's where the keys come from. And that's how, in the far-flung future, Ramona and her crew have access to all of these Power Ranger powers. The way I found around all of this, when you have these Super Sentai characters, for instance, that aren't, you know, native to the universe, the way I found around this was to call them Rangers from other planets. We had this with the Aquatarian Rangers showing up with the Alien Ranger suits with the ninja motif. And so that pretty much explained that Power Rangers from other planets would have different powers. Trey of Triforia ended up having inexplicably Zeo-compatible powers. I don't think it was ever explained why his powers were compatible with Zeo's, but they just were. But and that's what you find in the Power Rangers universe, though, is that we have a very large cosmic community, if you will, to choose from. And so from all that space, all these different Rangers can come forward and fill in the gaps. So when we have like Five-Man or Jetman or, even O-Ranger, you have the ability to attach with those, like, oh, yes, this is for the Rangers from this part of the galaxy or this part of the galaxy, that kind of thing. You don't have to really worry about contextualizing them, their battle, whatever. They were all summoned to Earth, in order to meet the Dominion and defeat them, but the opposite happened. So that's the setup for how these characters come into their powers. And so throughout the series, they encounter the old legends, if you will, the previous Power Rangers that no longer have their powers, but are doing their best to keep the Dominion from fully dominating the Earth in their time. They, of course, lose this contest in order for the Starstrikers to come to be. Okay? You have to understand a lot of the negativity that you see with the Power Rangers community and things like that, a lot of that negativity ends up being fomented as the studios miss what people actually want. Now, I understand they're trying to attract kids to this and things like that, but look at Star Wars. Star Wars fell all over itself trying to create this new continuum, and it just didn't really work. Star Trek, again, trying to create this new continuum, fell all over itself. The Kelvin universe is a neat little thing, but it never gained its own true personality. It always felt like just another version of Star Trek. Same with all of the new products they've come out. Strange New Worlds, Star Trek Destiny, whatever is going on with Starfleet Academy, I have no clue, man. Like it's just crazy. You know, the Klingons won't even eat things that died. It's vegan Klingons, okay? That's where you find yourself. And similarly, Power Rangers has been melted down into this thing that is barely distinguishable from any previous season. And this is ultimately the fate of Cosmic Fury that tried very desperately to create some sort of denouement for 30 years of the series and ended up, again, tripping all over itself rather than paying homage to where everything should be anchored. Okay? It's very important. And people want to see for a series that would involve bringing back the older Power Ranger suits, similar to Gokaiger, people want to see the heroes associated with those suits. But this, again, adds that neat twist where they don't have their powers to call upon, but the pirates do have those powers. So you have scenarios like this where we have, I believe this is Marcus. I'm sorry, I don't have their names memorized. You have, shoot me, I guess. But Marcus Vane, if you like, he is the Blue Ranger, the Blue Star Striker, and he is, of course, beside Doggy Kruger, and they are clearing bad guys from presumably inside the Deca base. And so again, you have these Power Rangers that are still trying to do what they do best out in the world, now with the complication of not being able to call on their powers. This creates a need for our pirate Power Rangers, the Starstrikers, without forcing them on the scene. This is what happened with Super Mega Force, is it just didn't make sense what was happening with them, especially considering they saved the Legend War to the end. So it just didn't, they were just duplicate Morphin powers. Is that what the keys were? It was never explained. Neo Saban had no idea what to do with this, and they just really wanted to pull the Band-Aid off. But then they went to Japan and refilmed all of these very strange references to Super Sentai for no apparent reason. The most bizarre decisions were made around this Gokaiger adaptation, and I'll never understand it, which is why I've dug in and tried to do this. I wouldn't say a lot of justice because it's Power Rangers. What are you going to do? But I've tried to make sure that this series has at least some footing in what people want to see. Okay? And that's why you have characters like Doggy Kruger returning without the ability to transform into the Shadow Ranger, but still fighting the good fight. Again, I think this is one of those more important things to underline of like, what is heroism? What's the point of heroism? If you have to put on a piece of armor in order to be the hero, are you really a hero? Like that line from Avengers, take off the suit of armor, what's under there? It's kind of the thing. Take away the super soldier serum, what's under there? What brought you to the fight? Was it the neat kung fu and giant robot, or do you actually care about the future? That kind of. And then, of course, as you saw in the intro, I like the bringing back the galaxy gliders. So I figured that old technology that the space heroes were getting around in probably wouldn't hurt to have around. So you have here Soria. She is the Pink Ranger. And so she's riding around on the pink galaxy glider through a wormhole in this scene, or whatever you want to call it. But again, I thought it would be good to bring back this stuff because you remember this stuff. You remember it's all out there. It's still functioning. It's not like the Power Rangers have found a better way to get through space. So, of course, you have the galaxy glider that allows Soria to go wherever she needs to go. I already forgot the name of it. I'm sorry. I wasn't a big Lost Galaxy fan. Not that I hated it. It just I wasn't able to catch it on television because I didn't live where it was, a thing. I forget what these are called. Uh, Star Cruisers. I'm not sure what they're called. You have to let me know in the chat if you remember what these are called. But you have the Vesper Cross, and she is of course piloting this across space and time through the wormhole. And again, I wanted to bring back these things that had a special place in the hearts of Rangers. These were toys for a lot of kids, and so it would mean a lot to see new Rangers riding around in this old tech and that sort of thing. Honestly, I don't think it would have killed Neo Saban to go out there and just rebuild these things. They don't take that long to put together anymore. Now, of course, I created my own Draken. This is not the Draken that you know. This is not Jason David Frank underneath that helmet. I don't make dead men dance. So if you're expecting that helmet to come off and to see Jason David Frank's face underneath that helmet, I have very bad news for you. That is not the case. I don't believe it's right to resurrect actors. What I want to explain about this whole situation, though, is that for Ramona, who is our Red Ranger, she is in this position due to a very bad situation she found herself in as a young lady. Her parents were doctors on Onyx. And when Onyx was overrun by the Dominion, her parents were wiped out. It cost her right eye in the escape, and there is a burn mark on her back that looks like a black eagle. And so she changed her name to Ramona Black Eagle from her original name, and later on found the Aquila Corsair, and that's the Gokai Galleon. And then that was her ship. And slowly, the other Rangers are drawn to her as they continue to meet her on her adventures to collect the keys that are scattered across her timeline. So the first part of the series takes place in a far, far flung future, even beyond Time Force. And so they're collecting the Ranger keys. Then the rift opens and they go back in time to just after the Rangers' defeat at the hands of the Empyrean Dominion in our time. Not out here in the real world, but like in our time. All this time skipping, though, the Dominion traveling through time, Ramona's team traveling through time, of course, Time Force having to react to all that, traveling through time, has triggered Draken's reaction to all of it. And so he's entered this universe in order to continue his domination. This is my excuse to get Draken into this universe, as he is looking at this like was unaware of the multiverse. Let's put it that way. This guy was unaware that there is a multiverse out there, this version. And so what ends up happening is that he's sort of like a Sephiroth character as he's entering the universe. There are pockets of him that will bleed through into their timeline and attack Ramona or attack the other Rangers. And this is what you're seeing here. You see this, of course, in the intro is reversed where he's reaching through the glass, because I like the idea of like a reflection becoming tangible and, reaching out and getting you. And that's what happens to Ramona, is much like Cloud in Final Fantasy VII is having hallucinations rather. Sorry, hallucinogenics are a drug. Having hallucinations of Sephiroth confronting him, taunting him, talking to him. This is what happens to Ramona as Draken is attempting to enter her timeline. And that is, of course, first it sounds like a bit of a unsettling horror situation where like a reflection can reach out and grab you and that sort of thing. But that's what's happening with this, is that the way that he enters the universe is more spiritual than physical at first. Like the spirit of Draken has infected this timeline and it's attacking these Rangers. Then the actual physical manifestation of him arrives. And if you're wondering what ends up happening with him, so, the Morphex energy tends to behave not so much like a flame. So I figured his malevolent control of it would result in this. And this is the power boost that he needed in order to cross dimensions. And so I think this works a lot better, in my opinion, than the original Shattered Grid story where Tommy just stayed evil. He was like, yeah, screw it, I'll just be an evil guy. That one irked me. I mean, again, Shattered Grid is a great story. I really enjoy it. I think it's probably the best of the Boom stories, like ever. Honestly, I don't think Boom has ever topped that. You have your feelings about Prime. I have my feelings about other things, but I really do believe that this series, Shattered Grid, was the the pinnacle of Power Ranger comics. I don't think they're going to get much better than that. And so I drew inspiration, of course, off of that. But the big thing that irked me was like the igniting event was him just deciding to stay evil. And that was annoying. So I figured this one would be heartbroken and not wanting to see anyone else suffer. And so he's decided to put a lid on the world, a lid on evil. And this has driven him to the extremes of becoming Lord Draken. And I think I'm gonna go with like his defining quote will be, if suffering teaches nothing, maybe ending it will. What's up, guys? Obviously, I didn't finish the plot to this one because, who wants to have that spoiled for them, right? If you want to know the full story to what's going on with the Starstrikers, let me know, and I'll try to put together an episode once I'm done with Mighty Morphin Power Rangers Save the Hollow Earth. That's right, like I said at the top of the video, we're not done with it yet.